The Bobby O Show.
Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bob O. Potzner. I'm an attorney in Danbury, Connecticut. I live in Richfield. And I've got a show today that I'm really proud to have because, as you all know if you've been watching my shows, I'm a big advocate of the rule of law. I'm very concerned about the democracy that we have that is at risk in our society. And I've been involved in doing what I think I can do, not to just sit there and whine. In Yiddish it's called kvetch. It's not just whining, to do something, to get off my tuchus, my butt, and do things. And so I've been going to rallies. I attended the rally on No Kings rally on October 18th, both in Bethel and Richfield. So I'm doing my thing to try to get across the importance of doing things to protect our democracy. And I've spoken to a group called Justice Southbury, and that's the group we have with us today. And I gave a little speech there a few weeks ago, and I talked about doing what one can do. We are now in the early voting period. I, in fact, voted yesterday in Richfield. It took all of 3 minutes. It's no line. It was beautiful. You must get out and vote. Use the early voting period as much as you can, because if the old saying when I was a kid was, vote and the choice is yours, don't vote and the choice is theirs. Very important message to you. It's not brilliance on my part. It's just reality. And if you think one political party is more at fault for where we are now, you know who I think is at fault, then vote the way you think is appropriate to get your point of view across. Having said that as a preamble, I want to talk to you a little bit today about the gentleman I have here today from the Justice Southbury group, which is amazing. If my numbers are correct, they have been out on the green area off exit 15 in Southbury on I-84 for 283 weeks, I think it is, consecutively every Sunday. I have today with me Rick Richardson. Hello, Rick.
Bob, how are you?
And I have Jeremy Farrell. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing great, Bob. It's fantastic to be here today.
Notice the signs in front of me and notice the sweatshirts that they have on them today. And we're going to talk about what this magnificent group has been doing in Southbury, literally 283 consecutive weeks. I was supposed to speak there in early September, and it drizzled a little bit. And Bobby O said, it's raining out. I'm not going to go in the pouring rain. And they met anyway. But this group is awesome, and before I introduce Rick and Jeremy, I want to show some photographs that really show what this group does and how long they've done it for, I think it's 283 consecutive Sundays. My directors, we want to show the films very quickly. That's I-84 area, and that's the group, a part of the group, which I think has 991 members last I saw.
In our official Facebook group.
And this is where they meet every Sunday. 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, even if the Giants are playing.
You can see the masks because we started during COVID.
There you go. That's Jeremy, who we'll talk to a little bit. That's part of the group. That's a big picture of, it's probably about an average size of a group, Rick?
Yeah, ish.
Each Sunday.
Yeah.
That's their banner, which you have also in front of me. They have the Christmas hats on, so I'm presuming it's around December of whatever year it was, correct?
That is a good assumption, Bob.
Thank you very much. Another shot of the group. That's Rick giving a speech in the area. And we're going to have Rick do a couple of his speeches. We have videos of those speeches later on today in the show. I love this picture because that white stuff is not artificial snow. This is not TV. This is not Hollywood. This is real snow. When was that? In a December time period?
Yeah, or January, yeah.
Towards our earlier rallies, Rick used to show up early to shovel.
This one was a blizzard where there were only 4 of us, but it was a blizzard that had shut down all the roads and the highways. So the governor said, don't go out there, but we did.
That's
Did
why
you
don't
shovel
see me.
some of the, and there's a Hanukkah menorah. We got to have that one.
That's us singing Christmas carols, which we do every year for Christmas rally.
You'll have to excuse my coughing, getting over a cold right now. What is this? Same picture?
That's just one of our most recent rallies.
Who's speaking there? Do you know?
Here
That
is
is State Rep.
Congresswoman Johanna Hayes.
Johanna Hayes.
And that's guitarist and songwriter Justin Verga. And that's me and my daughter Julia.
The co-founders of Justice Southbury.
Excuse me. Let's go to who were those two people?
There, right there, that is me on the left, and that's my middle daughter Julia on the right. She co-founded Justice Southbury with me.
Who are you, Rick? Tell me what you do. What are you?
Well, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for about 39 years in my practice in Woodbury, Connecticut, mostly litigation. And my wife and I have 3 wonderful daughters who are all in their 20s now. And although they were very socially active as kids, they were active in environmental projects. They were active in anti-gun projects, having grown up in the town right next to Sandy Hook. And I was just somebody who admired what they were doing and had very strong opinions about things, and kept my opinions either to myself or to my close group of friends. I wasn't a marcher. I wasn't a chanter. I wasn't a big protester. I was read a lot, think a lot, have a lot of ideas and opinions, but I wasn't out there doing anything until George Floyd was murdered, and that's when this all started.
By the way, Rick is a very good lawyer.
Thank
I've
you.
gone against him. I don't know if he's ever won a case against me. No, he's a very, very good lawyer. And also, he apparently has a good jump shot. He plays basketball, or
I
did.
used to. Now it's no longer a jump shot. It's just a shot.
Just a shot,
Yeah.
okay? And talk about your daughter a little bit.
So
she was
this
a
is my middle.
co-founder.
Yes, my daughters are Anna, Julia, and Grace, and we all went to the first one of these rallies. But Julia was going back to college at Cornell in the fall, and we weren't sure. Jeremy and I had talked about, can we keep this going without Julia? And we decided we needed to, and we did. So Julia now lives in New York City, but she still, when she can, comes to the rallies and is really a really big part of the group.
Jeremy, tell me about yourself.
I'm Jeremy. There's a lot of different ways to go with this, well, I'll try to do my best. Professionally, I am an autism advocate. I'm autistic myself, and I go around the state speaking to schools and libraries. I also do a lot of mentoring. But another huge part of my life is social justice activism, actually very similarly to Rick. It's kind of funny how similar our paths to this was. I also grew up reading a lot, thinking a lot, talking about politics a lot, but talking about it with small groups of people, not really putting myself out there. And then 2020 happened, and I ended up going to a lot of rallies, and I ended up finding a lot of things that felt very important to me and that I wanted to stand for, beginning with racial justice and then going into disability justice, going into LGBT issues, a lot of different things that affect me in different ways. And I ended up working a lot with Justice Southbury to help organize our rallies, and I also got involved in politics. I helped out on multiple campaigns. I helped organize rallies in response to book banning efforts, and I've kind of just gone with it as I have and seen how I can make a difference, who I can support, and try to build better and stronger communities full of love.
You mentioned you're an autism advocate. I used to march every May, the first Monday in May, first Saturday in May, I think it was, for the autism walk around the Waterbury Courthouse. My daughter is a special education teacher. My wife's a retired special education teacher. I was on the Board of Ed 15 years, so I have a little bit of knowledge about that. But for the audience, what is an autism advocate?
So I can answer this very easily because I start most of my presentations with it. What does autism advocate mean? Well, I just need an umbrella to put everything I do under it. So beyond being a speaker who speaks in schools, libraries, to organizations and businesses, I also do private mentoring and tutoring on the side. I'm also a certified life skills coach on the Connecticut Autism Waiver. I'm on the board of directors for an organization that provides recreational employment and opportunities to sell art for neurodiverse individuals, and I consult with businesses. So I do a lot of different things, but a lot of it comes from the idea of advocating for the autistic community, sometimes advocating for the things I know we need, and sometimes talking with autistic people and then helping them, those around them, understand how they're feeling and what they're thinking, because it sometimes can be hard when you don't have a middleman who kind of gets it.
And we'll get into that another show. I'm going to do a show with, having spoken with you and a friend of mine, Chris Norris, who's a lawyer.
I love Chris.
Yeah, and he was, that's how I got into the parades, but we'll discuss it more at another point in time. The one thing you left out is, I didn't know this when you became a member of this show, that Amy Klein is your mother, and she's a lawyer I knew for years and years and years, so I'm sure she's watching today. If she's not, I'm going to yell at her. But
Hello.
that's right. She's a great lady. Rick, let's get to Justice Southbury.
Sure.
What is Justice Southbury?
We're not a nonprofit organization. We're really just a group of individuals. We're just volunteers, we came together after the death of George Floyd, and like most places in America, most small towns and cities, groups of people gathered on a street somewhere the Sunday after he was murdered, and just said, "We have to do something about this. What can we do? Enough! This has got to stop." And my wife and I and our 3 daughters happened to attend the first rally. There were maybe about 200 people there, and so it was a really good vibe. It was very positive, but it was really an expression of anger mostly. One of the things that happened near the end of the rally, there was as we were out on all lined up across the street, along the street, and there was a black man with a video camera. I didn't know him at the time, and he was walking past everybody and filming and saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." And where we were was at the very end of the line. So when he finished thanking everybody, he then turned the camera back around to himself, and he said really emotionally, "I never knew my town would come out for me like this." And it hit me and my family like a ton of bricks. Like, how would you not know that? Why would you not know that this town of Southbury would do this? And it really made us say, well, we've got to do something about that. We have to let people know that there are people who will not let this happen, and who are upset about it. And so it was supposed to be just that one rally, and then the following.
When was that, by the way?
It was May 29, 2020.
So is it
So 5.5 years ago.
Memorial Day weekend, more or less.
Memorial Day weekend, yep. And so my daughter posted some photographs on Instagram. And her friends said, "Oh, Julia, I wish we had known about that. We would have come. Are you doing it again?" So she asked me if we're doing it again, and we weren't organizers. So I talked to the organizers, and I said, "Are you guys doing another one?" And they said, "Well, no, we were just doing that one. But if you want to do it, you can do it, and we'll give you the signs." So they gave us the signs, and Julia and I got the word out, and we had about 250 people the following Sunday. And I won't tell you about all 283 weeks, but I will say, at the end of that first week, there was a couple in their 90s that were leaving with a couple of signs, and Julia said to me, "Dad, they're taking the signs. What do we do?" And I said, "I'm sure they're not stealing that. We'll go talk to them." So we went and said, "Would you like us to bring these signs back to put in the pile for you?" And they said, "No, we'll just bring them next week." And we looked like, "Oh, I guess there's going to be a next week." And so we just kept going. And I think the thing that was different about our group, as opposed to everywhere else in America, where people, you heard about the protests of that summer. Again, for us, it's been 5.5 years, and a big part of it was something like what we heard from that man, and that the idea that we have to be the people to lean into this. We were really influenced by the expression by Martin Luther King Jr. that. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And we said, we cannot be silent friends. We need to stand up. And so that really got us going.
As you said that, this is true. I was thinking as you were speaking, mentioning Martin Luther King, Million Man Walk in the 60s. And I was going to say, and will say now, is I think having a 1 million person walk on DC or New York City or whatever is phenomenal. Me personally, as a kid born in Shelton, Connecticut, living in Richfield, Connecticut now, I think it's important to have the small towns. I mentioned those 2 rallies, one in Bethel and one in Richfield. Yep. You're a Southbury. You're a small, 20,000 people more or less, I'm going to guess, in the greater Southbury area. And by the way, it's called Justice Southbury, but it's not limited to Southbury,
Sure.
As I understand.
Southbury
but I think
area,
right. But the point is that, to me, having smaller communities have these kinds of rallies, and I don't know if anybody's done 283. I don't know if anybody's done 83 in a row. Jeremy, I mentioned it's not just Southbury. Where do you live?
So I live in Brookfield. So I can actually kind of explain this a bit. So when I first heard about George Floyd's murder, and I was like, I need to do something. I can't just keep talking about these things. I need to get out there and do something, make my voice heard. I ended up trying to go to rallies around my area. There was one in Brookfield. There was some in nearby towns. but eventually I ended up in Southbury. And I was so impressed with what Southbury was doing. But even more so, I was impressed that they did it the next week. And they did it the week after. And even though all these towns around me were having rallies that I never expected, so many of them happened and then were done. But Southbury kept going, and we've been asked quite a few times, why are you doing it in Southbury? Why are you doing it in this small town? It's small, the problems, according to some people, are not big enough to have to address. Why are you doing it here and not in other places we think you should be doing it because it's more important? And to me, that's such a weird question, because as somebody who grew up in one of these small towns, because I would have wanted to see this. Because growing up, when I felt alone as I was learning that I was queer, as I was coming to terms with what it means to grow up Jewish in our country, as I was learning what it means to be an autistic person and be seen as disabled, I wished I had people who were in my town saying that this is a place of love and belonging and acceptance. I want that in the small towns that I have grown up in. In Brookfield, I grew up in New Milford as well, and now there's rally groups like that in New Milford, and I think it's so important for people who are in my position to get to see that.
It's interesting you say that, because I was thinking about the great line from Great Gatsby, in which there's a great line that says, the only difference between the rich and us are they have more money. And that's a classic line, because I'm a divorce attorney, and a lot of what I do is an attorney. And I see financial affidavits, and people think, Richfield, Westport, whatever town it may be in down coast Fairfield County, they're all rich, there's no problems. There are plenty of people who need Meals on Wheels. I did a show with Meals on Wheels in Richfield, and every community has people who have needs. It may not be obvious. And so when you did your discussion, started with George Floyd and your position, Jeremy, we all need to gather together to fight for democracy. I just read this morning that the Department of Justice lied or made a mistake in Portland when they provided how many people who were the military or the National Guard, whoever were there. They overstated it. And the rule of law requires truth and honesty. Rick, how do you guys go about to get across your message of truth and honesty? This is sort of a leading question, because I have a video coming up about this topic. But how do you go about fighting for the rule of law, truth and honesty, to protect democracy?
Sure. Well, one of the first things we did is, after a couple of weeks, we realized that in our small town with our group, we couldn't just be about fighting for racial justice. We needed to expand the foundation of what we were doing. That led us to really grapple with what could it mean if we want to be a group that makes a difference, if we want to have a positive message and affect something good in our community. We needed to ground what we do in a really positive moral foundation and moral ecology. And so we thought about love your neighbor as a way of, in a non-religious, non-partisan way, but as a way of saying this is what we're going to be about. And so it really changed the way we approached things, and it led us to work on a mission statement and a vision, which then, as we progressed, had us expand what we were talking about to the vision is a more fair and kind community for all. And so that really says what we try to do. So in terms of the rule of law, the challenges that we've had, and people sometimes say, "Oh, you guys are just out there because of Trump." I said, no, we were out there for four of our 5.5 years. There was a Democratic president, and so we've really turned our attention over the past 1.5 years or so to what are America's founding values. And there had been we had talked about that early on, and I think you'll see some of Julia talking about the Take Back the Flag speech. But we talked quite a bit about founding values and about how, where do you find true patriotism? And we've talked quite a bit about how true patriotism is really found in the effort to make it a more perfect union. Not to say America's perfect, love it or leave it, but to say we need to work together to make America a more perfect union. We talked about Lincoln with the better angels of our nature, not perfection, but the idea that if we're going to stand for something, we need to stand for something that's grounded in love, grounded in fairness, grounded in kindness in terms of how we deal with each other. As to the rule of law specifically, we've had judges, we've had retired judges, we've had a number of attorneys, including Bobby O, come and speak at our rallies. So it's really been a hallmark of what we do is the importance. It's like a continuing sort of civics course or something out there every Sunday afternoon.
You know, what's ironic is that I've been practicing law for over 40 years, and I never once in all those years, I'm a litigator, so I was in court 3-4 days a week before COVID. Now we're in court 3 or 4 days a week, but it's not physically in court. And I never once thought about what political party the judge belonged to. It didn't matter to me because I always believed in my career that the judges would be fair and equitable throughout. And I found that to be the case, except for one case many years ago. But you know, just like they're not all perfect lawyers or doctors or insurance men, whatever, or advocates. But I never worried about the political party that's involved. Jimmy, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to give mention. I worry Rick might make this sound a little too easy. While we have really done this so long that we have such a clear idea of where we've been and why we made certain decisions, because we are so grassroots, a lot of these decisions were made after tons of conversations with our members, conversations over how to keep racial justice central to what we do while also expanding so we can support more people, conversations about how much attention we should be paying to international issues versus national issues versus local issues. These were very common conversations over the first few years as we tried to figure out exactly how we fit into our community, our purpose, and how we can build this in a sustainable fashion.
Yeah, because we really weren't saying, well, we like what those people are doing, let's copy that. We really were making it up as we went along.
Yeah.
But with
With a plan.
Without knowing we had a plan.
With values.
Yeah, exactly. It started as a values thing, and then we realized if we're going to keep doing this, we can't just be they're the group that meets every Sunday. It has to be they're the group that meets every Sunday to explore something, to talk about something. And the thing we really explore the most is if you truly believe in love your neighbor, it doesn't have to be religious, but if you truly believe in love your neighbor as a really good foundation for human interaction, then what does that mean? What does that mean with respect to how women are treated, how children are treated, how you address LGBTQ issues, how you address racist issues, and how you deal with, we don't do a lot of financial things, economic things, but how do you deal with the American system and the American project? So it's been, yes, it's been an evolving process ever since.
My son graduated from Lehigh University, and the great late Elie Wiesel, who's a Holocaust survivor and a poet and a writer, I'll never forget what he said, hope I don't forget right now, and he said, we must appreciate the otherness of others. We must appreciate the otherness of others. You have a mission you referred to, I'm going to read that to you in a second, but I want to do our first video we have, and you mentioned Julie, who spoke about some topics. If I can have Julie on 5 years as that video, I'd love it, my directors, please.
Hi everyone.
Julie, right?
So,
Yes, that is Julie.
almost 5 years ago, in the earliest weeks of this movement, you might recall I gave a speech I called Take Back the Flag. It came after a man showed up at our rally with a giant American flag and a mouth full of hate. That moment forced a question I think many of us had been quietly wrestling with. Who gets to claim the flag? Who gets to call themselves a patriot? Over the past 5 years, we've seen a lot of change. Some progress, some backlash, some exhaustion. But we've also seen this truth reinforced again and again, that protest is patriotic. Because by rallying today, we uphold the patriotic values we cherish. We don't ignore or excuse America's past, we confront it. We use that confrontation to change the future, to work towards a more perfect union. That is the patriotic tradition. Holding America accountable is a way of loving it deeply and honestly. Throughout our history, to be a patriot has always meant to want more from our country, and to never say this is good enough. Because protesting America's greatest weakness is America's greatest strength. So 5 years later, I still say, we are taking back the flag. We're reclaiming it from those who wield it to exclude, and we're holding it high as a symbol of a country that belongs to all of us, not just in name, but in reality. Because we, the people, doesn't mean some of us, it means all of us. Our movement is still peaceful, it is still principled, and it is still powerful. 5 years later, we're not quieter, we're clearer, and we're not going anywhere. Thank you to the patriots that have come before and to those who are still to come. We honor you.
Awesome. And I love her comment, we the people, because our Constitution, as we all know, begins we the people. And it doesn't mean we, this kind of people, or that kind of people, or that person over there. It means all of us.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine, Stephen Miller, in Durham, North Carolina, is a artist. And he made a flag, I believe it was. I bought one. It was print of some type. And it says, we the people means all the people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is ironic because North Carolina right now, and I'm a Dookie, North Carolina right now is gerrymandering,
right?
Which is a horrible thing going on. Rick, tell me a little bit about how your group is different, if it is different today, 5.5 years later, than it was. I know the beginning was sort of a spontaneous beginning. Are things different now, and if so, how are they different? Are they better different?
I think they're better different. At the beginning, it was very emotional. There was anger. There were expressions of never anything negative. It's never been about violence or anything like that. It's never been political, so it's not a we're against that person or against that person. But as it developed, we realized it needed to be positive, and so as you can tell from Julia's Take Back the Flag speech, or her reference to that, what our rallies have become is the first half hour or so we have speeches. Jeremy's a frequent speaker, I'm a frequent speaker, you came in to speak, and we sometimes they're topics of the day, other times they are we'll do thematic series. So typically around the holidays during the winter, we will have a number of local faith leaders from various organizations and various denominations come and speak about what does love your neighbor mean in your faith tradition. So there's an intellectual aspect to it, but what's happened over the years is the group has come to really embrace our place as sort of communicators. We communicate with ourselves, we communicate over social media, we communicate at the rallies, we live stream the rallies, and one of my favorite parts of the communication is the byplay with the vehicles going by. I stand there with my love, red, white, and blue "Love Your Neighbor" sign every Sunday, and of course a few people give me the bird or yell certain things. But there's quite a bit of very positive. And one of the things that always strikes me is the people who are just, because it's right there at Stop and Shop, it's, right at that intersection, and the people who are just driving by, living their normal lives and doing their thing, and they look up and they see, oh, there's a bunch of people over there. Why are they there? What are they there for? And they'll catch some part of a sign, and the sign might say "Be kind" or "Love your neighbor," or they see a pride flag. And the number of people who go from stone-faced living their life to smiling and clapping or honking or doing this love thing, it makes us realize that we have an ability to project the positive message beyond that. So I think it's evolved in a way that it's as Julia had said in that clip that you showed. The principles that we've been talking about have been roughly the same since the beginning. We've really honed our message, and we've focused on how to do this better, how to be better at trying to be good citizens.
Do you want to comment upon what we just talked about?
I would love to, because I think that that's kind of the big picture of Justice Southbury. It's very hard to talk about how we've changed and evolved, because in my opinion, the story of Justice Southbury is us trying to explore and discover who we are, to figure out what this is, what it could mean, what we can do with it, how we can change the world, our communities, or even just singular people's lives for the better. And the ways that has come in a lot of different forms. A phrase we use a lot and that I really love is good people doing good things. A lot of times we do something just because one person's like, we should do this, and everybody else is like, sounds good, we're in. That's how we ended up collecting educational supplies for Afghanistan refugee children. That's how we ended up collecting supplies for unhoused individuals in Waterbury. That's how we ended up collecting juice for the Southbury Food Bank for multiple years now, every single month, because somebody was like, hey, this is how Justice Southbury can make a difference. And everybody was like, yes, let's do it. Let's do it together. So we change as part of Justice Southbury.
What you said reminds me of, quote, good trouble, unquote.
That's a quote that's been used a lot on our corner.
From the 60s, it's a civil rights movement in the 60s.
Yep.
Good trouble is a very important thing. Do you think, Jeremy, you have made a difference?
Yes. So I think quantifying if Justice Southbury's made a difference or not is really, really interesting, because I think a yes or a no just kind of don't work. It's so complicated. It's hard to kind of weigh certain things against each other and see which ones might matter more. So I hold on to the things that I know mean something. We have had multiple families come to Justice Southbury with a similar sentiment. One came and said that they moved to Southbury because they felt comfortable raising their, I believe, LGBT children in Southbury because they saw our rally. We had a family who came and said that they felt comfortable raising their biracial children in Southbury because of our rally. And we have had other sentiments like that, though none that have touched my heart quite to that level. And those are the things where I'm like, we changed their lives. We have helped these people feel safer, feel more connected to their community, feel more connected to their neighbors. We have created a way for that people to love our neighbors better and more effectively. And that's success to me. And there's 37 other metrics that I think are debatable and interesting and worth discussing, from how people are voting in town to how much activism is spreading throughout the state to how many groups have copied our template for weekly rallies. But when I really need to remember if we've been successful or not, I think about the people who have come to Justice Southbury to say how it's changed their lives.
Our Constitution allows free speech and peaceful rallies. And I happen to think, I'm going to ask Rick for his comments, that although I've been pessimistic, and it's hard not to be pessimistic, sometimes there are breakthroughs. And I think groups like yours, groups like that were involved in the No Kings Rally #2 on October 18th have made a difference. And I point to the decision that came out the other day, I guess it was yesterday, from the Chicago Federal Court Justice, who was outraged by the throwing of Scavino, who is #2, I guess it is, on the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, I guess it'd be ICE, who threw a can of tear gas in the direction of kids going in Chicago to a Halloween walk. I've got a 3.5-year-old grandson, and it's looking forward to Friday for Halloween. How could we allow that? And I think the fact that the ICE #2 guy was forced to come to court at 6 o'clock every day until November 5th, I think it's attributable to people saying no. Any comments, Rick?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think one of the things that we found is that there's a need to show up and to speak up and to stand up. And so that's why the No Kings Rally, the importance of people showing that they have it's a way of saying enough. I don't want this to happen anymore. I know that I used to talk to my girls about how, I wish I had been around in the 60s. I would have been out there marching. I would have been a freedom rider. I would have been this. I would have been that. And I don't know that I would have. I would like to think that I would have. But then I think it was the second week of our rallies, a guy had a sign that said, if you ever wondered what you would have done during the civil rights era, you're doing it now. And that really hit me, because I thought, yeah, if you're home right now with all the things going on in this country, if you're home right now, that's okay, but you would have been home for the Holocaust. You would have been home for the civil rights era. If you believe you would have had the courage to stand up and speak up about the things that you can't tolerate in our society, then prove it. You have an opportunity now to prove it.
Joan Baez. Joan Baez, a great singer she's now in her mid-80s. I think she was I forget what her chant was. Not all we are saying, give peace a chance, but we shall overcome. And I heard her on a podcast with Nicole Wallace, who's MSNBC. Yes, MSNBC, I watch MSNBC, which I think Comcast owns MSNBC, by the way. And she had Joan Baez speaking on her podcast, and Nicole asked Joan Baez, do you think it's worse or better now than it was in the 60s? And Joan Baez says, it is much worse now. And she said, we all must get off our behinds and do what you guys are doing. But you guys do more than just go every Sunday at 2 o'clock in that green area near Dunkin' Donuts, or I call it near that bakery, that's a private owned bakery nearby. And you do a speaker series.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit what the speaker series is about, and then we're going to show that clip on the speaker series.
Sure. So one of the things we realized after the first year, as I was reaching out to people to come speak at our Sunday rallies, is that we wouldn't be capturing 99% of the country if we just said to people, can you come to Southbury, Connecticut on a Sunday afternoon? So we reached out to a guy who's an activist and a business leader in Albany, New York, to see if he could come, and he really couldn't. So we said, well, you know what, would you do a Zoom? And again, this is something Jeremy mentioned. It's okay, well, let's try this. And so that was a couple of years ago, and since then, pretty much monthly, we have a series where we do Zooms on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock, once a month or so, with business leaders and authors and podcasters and college professors and retired judges and attorneys. We had the secretary of the Democratic Party in Wisconsin last summer, giving her opinions and perspectives on what it was like to be part of a swing state in the election of 2024. We had an immigration attorney from Arizona a couple of months ago. And again, we've had, so it's really interesting because it allows us to have people hear their messages and to have our group hear it, but it's also a way to spread the communications of what we're doing, and again, the values of what we think are important. So we've had 28 of these so far in from people from 14 different states.
Jeremy?
Yeah, and I think they're incredible, and I think there's two specific things I kind of want to expand on from Rick. First, that I think it's an effective way to get people involved. There's a lot of people who don't want to come to the corner because they don't know what they're getting into, and walking into a situation yourself in person can be really scary. So this has provided a way to make our work accessible, and I think that's so important, because as much as you guys talk about the rule of law and the way you see a lot through that as attorneys, I see so much of the work we do through community empowerment. Because of where I come from, the identities I've had, the experiences I've had, I think a whole part of this is empowering people to make their voices heard, to get involved, to be educated and make a difference. And creating virtual ways for people to do that if they're not comfortable coming to the corner, I think is so important. And sometimes we see this pay off in incredible ways. Rick talked about our first speaker series, and that was Walter Thorne, right?
Yes.
It was with somebody who couldn't come to a rally. And then he came to our 5-year rally about 4 years later, and he spoke in person. And it was just a way of getting him into the group. And then he was comfortable coming to the group even closer when it came time. So it's all ways of getting people more invested, more involved, and giving them chances to do so on their own terms.
The one thing that's important also is that the three of us in this room right now, we all have different things that are our most important issue. To me, aside from democracy, I'm big involved in gun control violence. A very close friend of mine she survived, is and was a teacher at Sandy Hook. She was a classroom to the left, and I've had her, if they shot her to go in one direction or the other, she would have been shot. And she's been on my show a few times. And I had a lady named Tara Donnelly whose parents were murdered 20 years ago, and they had a jewelry store in Fairfield, and someone stole a gun and killed her parents. And so that's a thing that I'm really involved with. And however, in this environment, we all have different perspectives. And we want people, for example, even the NRA people, for example, I want them to support protecting democracy just as much as I do. And if people are happy about a tough, controlling president like Trump, who writes executive orders whenever he wants to, or a Supreme Court that says there's immunity to the president, gets to do whatever he wants, Well, wait till the next Democratic presidents come in, and I'm going to feel good about having an executive order saying it's a national crisis to have machine guns and rifles, and you got to think big time as to what's going to happen. So we want to get everybody, that's my point, everybody involved with democracy being critical, and the other issues are very important, but let's get the most important issue, which is saving the democracy. So let's know right now, go to that speaker, Rick speaking about, I'm not sure what the topic was, but it's part of the speaker series. And then we'll have you comment upon it on the other side. Sure.
Happen without a lot of hard work, but they can happen, and we need to keep doing our part for that. And one of the things that we do here, and since we have a few newcomers to Justice Southbury, I will mention that one of the things we do, for those speakers who have something to add, like Jeremy and Ed and Robin today, who have things to add to our conversation but can't be here on a Sunday afternoon, we have a Zoom speaker series. It's roughly monthly, and tonight is the 26th Zoom that we'll have. We will add a new state to our list of, I think we have people from about 12 or 14 states by now. We have our first speaker from Arizona. Ironically, our September speaker is also from Arizona. Our September speaker is an immigration attorney from Arizona. You can imagine what she has to report.
What was that all about, Rick?
So that night's topic was a woman who's an author from Arizona. And she was she had written a book about grief and mourning, but she was talking to us more about what can communities do, how can we have better conversations. One of the things that we've talked about frequently is how we've got sort of three general groups of people. There are green light people who love everything we do and who say, I support just about everything you're saying, Rick, all that love your neighbor stuff, all that fair and kind community stuff, we the people, I love all of that, we're for you.
Well, you do have 3 daughters involved.
Yes, well, yeah, but they're all
the wife, I'm not so sure. She might disagree with you once in a while.
No, they're all on board. But then there are what we call the red light people who say, I oppose everything you say. Every single minute of this TV show makes me mad. Every second you guys are out in the corner, I hate it. Too much democracy, too much, we don't like any of that. But it's the yellow light people in the middle, the maybes. Those who say, yeah, you guys do with all your stuff, you scare me a little bit, but the people on the right scare us too. We're not quite sure. One of the things that we've tried to do, and we had a conversation with the author from Arizona about, is what can we do for the people who aren't rabidly on one side or another, but who want to be positive forces in their community, might not know how to, might be scared to, might say, how do I take a first step? That it's interesting because that Zoom speaker series we had that night has led to continuing conversations. Julia and I and some other members of Justice Southbury have had a few Zooms, sort of off the record Zooms, with this woman, Candace Courtney, about how can we expand this conversation? How can we expand what we're trying to do with Justice Southbury? How can she expand it to Arizona? Can we do nationwide Zooms where we're talking about these things? So that's in the very, very nascent stage right now, but it's a good example of trying to increase our footprint and see what we can do to try to help to make the green light people greener. We're probably not going to change a lot of minds over on the right. That's okay. We're trying to be civil and respectful in all the conversations we have. But one of the things I do quite often on Facebook is when people are getting nasty about something, I try to be calm. I try to be hopefully somewhat intelligent. And I try to be sort of guided by love your neighbor, with the theory that if somebody is reading through the comments and they see one side spewing hate and fear and one side trying to ground what they're saying in love and hope, that can make a difference for those people in the middle and maybe move them somewhat, because that's the way as a country we're going to go forward. The marchers in the New Kings rally, that's really important. But the people who are afraid to march but still believe and still want to be part of that's really important as well. For everybody to do what they can, a little bit more.
There's a different perspective in this because it's different now than it was in the past. By that's what do I mean by saying that? Well, our country now is fighting, I'm going to say dirtier. Some of the things that are being done by the Republican Party are very, very nasty. I mean, I'm not sure what right we have to have a president bomb 12 or 14 boats somewhere near Venezuela, purportedly having drugs on the boats. Well, where's the Coast Guard to get on the boats and see what's going on? Do we have a right to do those things? And so there's tough things going, and the question some people talk about, that's why the Democrats started talking about amongst themselves, which is, gee whiz, should we fight it the old way, which is the morally correct way, or do we have to throw our elbows? When I played basketball, my nickname was Elbows. And you know, so it's a hard mesh as to how to do it. I think Jeremy has a comment about that.
Yes, so I will say from my personal take, I think specifically tradition is a very useless term here. There's a lot of things where people are like, well, they'll do it that way because we've always done it that way. And to that degree, I think there needs to be an acceptance that not everybody's playing nice. Sometimes you got to do things because they are the right things to do. But I do think that there is absolutely a complicated line here when it comes to what you are willing to do and if it's appropriate. And I think the more kind of Justice Southbury centric conversation here is the fact that when it comes to things like what you're talking about, we tend to be extremely careful because how we each approach it reflects on Justice Southbury and the community as a whole. So we are very open to having very difficult conversations with Justice Southbury because we want to model that we know they're necessary. So while we don't always get up there and say, this is our position on this issue exactly, the fact that we're creating space to have those discussions, I think is really important.
And it's very important, it's smart. When I spoke, I'm Jewish and I'm a supporter of Israel. However, I am not a supporter of Netanyahu. I do not believe in starving young children, even though people say, well, are they really young children? Are they involved or not involved? There are limits. You know, you have to do,
they are children.
Do the right thing. You have to do the right thing. And so when I went but to me, the whole key is fighting for democracy, fighting for our values. And when I went to speak that day, and I talked about the things that I think we can all do, the speaker after me really took shots at Israel. And I forget the guy's name, but he came to me and spoke afterwards. And my perspective was, I disagree with you on some of the things you're saying, but you know what? We have a bigger issue. And we have to deal with the other issues. Israel's got to be dealt with. You know, anti-Semitism shouldn't rise, but Israel's not doing the right thing. But the fact that I could look and say, you know, there's a bigger issue, and he even was, I think he was a little embarrassed that he may have said what he said, but that's okay, because we're fighting for the right thing. We only have about 8 minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about when I spoke and comments you may have. My perspective was, and I think yours also is, what can we do? You're doing this week every Sunday at 2 o'clock. You have your speaker series. What can people who are not people who have normally, if you're a 60-year-old person who has been a person who for 30 years has just sort of laid back and let things kind of happen, and now you want to step up, what can you do? So I had a list of things that I was going to run by you and see before I get to Jeremy. We're going to run this by you after you give me your comment and talk about the things that you think might be helpful, and you may have some ideas as well. What do you want to say,
well,
Jeremy?
One thing that I think gets overlooked a lot that kind of expands on what we were just talking about is I think there's too many people who think that in order to stand together, we need to avoid disagreement. And in Justice Southbury, we found completely the opposite. By having the hard conversations, by letting people speak honestly, that allows people to grow and come together because they know everybody's being honest and genuine and here to address these issues.
I'll give you an
think
analogy.
messy conversations
Here's an analogy. Rosemary, his law partner, and Rick and I have a case against each other, with each other, whatever. And I once had a client saying to me, gee, you were so nice to the other lawyer after the hearing was done. You were so aggressive, or whatever word he used or she used during the hearing, but now you're being friendly. And I said, of course, because we are adversaries, we're not enemies. And if you got mad at every lawyer every time you had a case, you could never go against that lawyer again because you'd be too blanked off.
Well put.
And that's an analogy I would make about the fact that you have to learn, and we have to learn to be better at disagreeing. So here's some of the things that I suggested. I'm just going to go slowly. If you want to stop me at any point saying yay or nay about it. I said, first of all, I said use your voices, which you've already covered as
Absolutely.
being a very important thing.
Absolutely. And one of the things we say frequently is when hate is loud, love has to be stronger and louder.
Say that again. I love that.
When hate is loud, love needs to be louder.
All we are saying is give peace a chance.
Sure.
I also think one of the most incredible parts of Justice Southbury has been seeing people grow as activists, people who were terrified to speak at first, who now are willing to get up there and say what they believe. It's incredible.
Local elections matter. Now the election's coming up on Tuesday, November 4th. In most areas in Connecticut, it's local elections. There's no congressional election, whatever. And usually, I ran 15 years, I was on Board of Ed, I won 5 elections out of 5 elections. Those elections matter. When I was on the Board of Ed, we had one member, I was head of curriculum committee on many years, and we had one member who was very conservative, and he would criticize the book had certain language that he didn't like. No, we have to be above that. So you want to, even in elections for Board of Ed, which I think is a very important board,
Sure.
you got to vote for people and ask the question. If you see someone on the street corner now, hi, I'm running for Board of Ed in Southbury or Pomperaug or however the district you have, ask them, who do you think should be in charge of the books that we choose? The board members or the administration? So I have that.
Yeah, that's an issue very close to my heart. As I worked, I was part of the Young Dems board for a bit, and my job was to get young people involved. And local politics was always the way to do it, because people just don't understand how much power they have at the local level, how many fewer people vote in local elections, how few people vote in budget referendums. You can organize and make real differences in your community.
GOTV. Who knows what GOTV is?
Get
Get out the vote.
Let's take it one more time.
Get out the vote.
vote.
Vote. Get your voice heard, regardless what it is.
Absolutely 100%. I have running for office. It's too late right now, but even though elections are happening now, there will be appointed positions that are going to be available. People who have your philosophies about protecting your democracy, et cetera. When you read in the paper, whatever the local Southbury paper is, what paper do you guys read?
Voices.
Voices, okay. There'll be openings announced to be on the Economic Advisory Commission or whatever, for example. I spent 4 years as chairman of the Charter Revision Committee in Richfield with Jill O'Connor, who you may know.
Sure.
And I was on the Water Pollution Control Authority for 2 years in Shelton. I was the shortest, smallest guy on the board. Everyone was 6'5" and huge. And I learned that a lot on that board. So those boards can be important. Attend election debates. It's probably a little bit too late by now, but it wasn't too late at then. Work for candidates, letters to the editor. Get ready for 2026.
I would love to just give a quick amount on working for candidates. One of, I think, the most fulfilling parts of politics is everybody thinks that they have to help the candidates in their area, but you don't. If you find somebody who you believe in, who you support, who you care about, supporting them can come from helping them however you can, whether it's going to them, donating, supporting them online. Find somebody you believe in who sparks that within you and follow that.
The last thing I'm going to talk about here, and there's other, because we only have 2 minutes left, get young people involved.
Absolutely.
Okay, that is, when I go to these, when I went to the Southbury, Justice Southbury thing that I attended, I don't think the youngest person was less than 40. Okay.
You were there on an off week. Typically, me and
they didn't
two
want
other
to
young
come.
people
They
are
didn't
there.
want to come because they saw me. No, but seriously, at the King's Rally, I did see more younger people there. We won't want to have just people involved where I bring the average age down.
Right.
And that's very important to get your friends involved. We have only about less than 2 minutes to go in the show, and I want to do 2 things. First of all, Rick, if someone wants to find your organization in the internet, how do you do it?
Do you mind if I take
Jer-
that
yeah,
one?
go
Jeremy
ahead.
should-
So
Jeremy
I
should do
handle
that.
a lot of our social media, so this will go best. On Facebook, you can find us at Justice Southbury. We have a private group that you must request to join. If anybody doesn't know, a private Facebook group is basically just like a chat forum where you can talk about different things. We also have a public Facebook page where we post clips of all our speakers. So if you're ever interested in what a rally looks like, what the speakers look like, what they're saying, feel free to go to our public Facebook page. You can also go to our public Instagram page. Unfortunately, both of these require an account with Meta, who owns Facebook and Instagram. So we also have a YouTube page. It's YouTube Justice Southbury. We have all of our videos also uploaded there. It was a multi-month long process that we just finished up, and that you do not need any account to view. So even if you've never been online before, you can go on YouTube, search Justice Southbury, and you will find clips of us speaking and get an idea what we're about.
It's time to go.
Okay.
I want to thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate what you're doing every Sunday. I will be there on some Sundays.
2 o'clock every Sunday.
Maybe
at 2.
some of your friends from Fairfield may come.
If it's a random
Kathy and Tom, tell them they better be there.
next time it's Sunday and you're like, are they there? We're there every Sunday.
Rain, snow, shine. Yep.
Get the last word, Rick. What's your last word?
Whenever someone says to me, tell me 2 takeaways from Justice Southbury, I say, look, if you want to do something we're doing, number 1, think about love your neighbor. What does it mean in this circumstance? And 2 is something we talked about, conversations, but put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to understand where they're coming from, and it really helps the conversations. It helps what we're trying to do. It helps everything you're talking about.
Exit the show.
Sorry?
I was there first. Exit the show.
Okay. So, Bob, good luck with your voice. I'm sorry that you're struggling with the cough, but it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for giving a microphone to Justice Southbury.